Commission, I should say, January 4th, 2023, 6 p.m. Any conflicts with items on the agenda?
No.
I noticed two things. Can I look at it right here? Do you care? Is this it?
Is it the approval of the minutes?
What are you looking for?
Oh, the approval of the minutes. No, any conflicts with it? No, no conflicts. You guys, I'm tired. Sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
wondering how you had two conflicts.
Two conflicts. I have two conflicts on this
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No, we're okay. No conflicts noted. Next item, approval of the minutes from December 7th, 2022.
Yeah. So, on lot line adjustment on page 1, corner of 300 M North, it says. Do you want it to say M North? Where it's highlighted, right on the first page, in the middle of the page.
I'm sorry, which page?
First page.
Yeah, it just is a,
Point it to me.
I can
Right
take that off.
Okay. Oh, just the typo here, Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the head.
It's just
M
two typos.
north.
Okay, so let's fix that.
Yeah, and then I think on had a couple extra N's somewhere. I can't remember where it was at.
Who prepared this document?
I think Judy
Must
does
be the
amazing.
cruiser.
Amazing. I will look at it and tell you.
Okay.
I'm like, I had my notes and I grabbed it all and didn't grab my papers. I'm sorry.
Grab a handout from Judy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll grab
It
yours.
was on somewhere.
He kind of snuck in.
Yeah, I highlighted
I
it.
went through it so fast I didn't do it.
Yeah, I highlighted it, but I left it at home.
So Tony, just to back up and check for a minute, do you have any conflicts with any items on the agenda?
I did not, no.
No, okay. All right, so we're still on the approval of the minutes. So we've got a couple corrections. Did anybody else find anything? In that case, I would entertain a motion with regard to the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from December 7th, 2022 with the two changes that Jamie has just brought up.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the hard surface code, our proposed revision. So this, from my perspective now, has bounced around a number of times. We made some proposed changes. We sent those forward. They came back from legal without really clear, I'll just say, direction. So we revised what we sent forward and resubmitted it to legal. And we got back a marked up copy. Question now is if anybody has their copy. So I have one spare here. I'm passing it down
Awesome, thank you.
Jamie's way, 'cause I'm betting Jamie's gonna wanna know what it says.
You want me to go make copies for everyone?
Would you, please?
Absolutely.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the old copy that we've already gone over and everything.
Oh, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We've gone over this one? I thought this was the most recent one.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Let me look at my computer and see what I have.
Yeah.
You looking for the one on hard service?
You guys, I really did have it sitting at my, like, I brought my everything and not that.
That's all right. You're taking a while.
Yeah, we have one that Judy and I went in and she typed it all up and we put a
Right.
line through that. So that would be the newest one.
Okay, well, I don't know why I got this one back, or why I think this is it, but anyway, okay. I'm glad it's something else.
It would have been sent in like November, Judy. I know
So are you still waiting for legal on the hard surface?
No,
No,
we got legal back, and then I thought we sent it to city council just to talk to at their work meeting. Was the last thing that we did. You weren't here, Larry, it was when Jerry was here.
okay,
Yeah.
that would explain it,
So,
'cause I'm going,
yeah,
Yeah.
No.
so we sent it to their
Yeah.
work meeting. So did you guys talk about it at your work meeting?
The hard surface?
Uh-huh.
I don't think city
Have
council,
we had city council since that meeting?
That was the last meeting we went to, we sent it. We voted and sent it to go to a work meeting.
Is this it?
Yes.
Oh, I thought this went to city council.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
supposed to go to city council, that's what we voted on.
And it may not have because we,
It was
sorry.
supposed to go to a work meeting, so I don't think they were gonna talk to it in public. It was just a work meeting, so you wouldn't know if it was there or not.
Yeah, my notes say the same thing, that we recommended it to go to the attorney or city council.
Yeah, in November.
okay.
Yeah.
And I thought we got a comment back from legal again.
Mm-mm.
So this wasn't the one that said this is a concern as it will likely cause
We-
flooding of neighboring property?
We
Down-
went over that. This was the old one. This was sent
Okay.
in 6, and so we did go over this. This was
Okay.
the one that was sent.
Okay, it went
Judy,
on
was it
December
on?
8th. It
Yeah.
was on December 8th, Parowan City Council meeting. They did discuss at the last council meeting they had,
In the work?
in the work, right here.
Okay.
It has your name on it.
This is great, and I wasn't there?
Oh, I wasn't there either, that's why.
Oh, you were on the phone, yeah.
And I couldn't hear
Bah,
a
yeah,
miserable thing that was
Yeah, yeah.
going on. so.
nor could we hear you,
Yeah.
You couldn't hear me?
barely.
Well,
Huh.
excuse me. No, that was very frustrating. That's something we've got to work on, 'cause that was very frustrating.
So I'm not sure what happened, because I wasn't there.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
so that's
so-
why I'm sitting here trying to think, where was I? Well, okay, I
Can you
wasn't there.
close that little malware window down
sorry,
in the
yes.
corner? Please? Thank you.
And just tell me when you want me to move it up.
Yeah, I'd like to read the red changes. There we go.
And then where it says section 3 was voted to be taken out, Judy actually caught it, and that was for commercial, correct, Judy, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
we did leave section 3 in.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll have to, we need to go back through the city council minutes and see if it did actually get discussed.
And I can do that. I started watching some of it, but I had a hard time
You-
hearing it.
You'll do it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm. And that was on 12/8?
Mhm.
So we know it hit the agenda, so that's good.
And I probably have those, but I didn't bring them as well. The minutes,
They don't put the city council minutes online, just the agendas?
Yeah, but they won't go online until after they're approved, and we haven't had a meeting.
Yep, gotcha.
So, and I don't know if it's supposed to be moved to action, or,
I started watching the first part of it on YouTube, but they were talking about that grant for a really long time, and then I turned it off.
Okay. Well, I'm glad
Sorry.
I'm glad this was the old one, 'cause I was looking at it and I was
I
going,
wasn't
I am
there.
so tired of looking at
Yeah,
this.
no,
We've worked it
no,
so
it's
many
been to
times.
legal twice now and everything, so.
do you want
Okay.
to email it back out, or do you care?
Let's just say I'm not concerned.
Okay.
I'll hold my horses until, till we hear from Jamie on whether it was discussed or not,
Okay.
and then we'll decide, I guess, at the next meeting,
Okay.
what to
Okay.
do with it, if somehow it got tabled. So in that regard, I would entertain a motion with, for the hard surface code discussion.
I think
I think it's basically a table it until the next meeting.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to table the hard surface discussion until our next meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Well, that ended differently than I thought it was going to. Thank you, everybody.
We are a lot further than you thought.
Yes, actually, I'm like, this is good, in a way. Moving right along, so we have the proposed billboard code. Now, everybody got a handout, and there is a soft copy that Judy can mail out if you need it. But here's where I stand on this. So in the last meeting, we talked about this and we said, hey, do we want to go forward and entertain billboard code? Because it's a difficult and lengthy piece of code. And if we're not in favor of doing something with it, I didn't really want to put any more effort into it. We all voted to continue. And so what you're looking at in that handout is the same handout as the last meeting until you get to page 4. So on page 4, there are some highlighted areas, highlighted in yellow. And we need to figure out what to do with those. And I'll kind of walk us through those. So the one that's numbered number 7 says the maximum area of one side of a sign, whether single or double-faced, shall be 675 square feet, with the face not exceeding 48 feet in length or 16 feet in height. Now, if you do the math, 16 by 48 is greater than 675, so it's not to be interpreted as those two numbers equal the square footage of the sign. It means if you make it 48 foot wide, it might have to be shorter than 16 feet tall. Or if you make it 20 feet tall, you can't make it more than 16 feet. So if you make it 12 feet tall, you can make it more than 48 feet wide. And if you make it more than 48 feet wide, it's got to be less than 16 feet high is how that works out. But effectively, in no case can it be greater than 675 square feet.
Can I ask why you changed that? What was the thought behind it?
So what I changed was,
The 16 from 14.
right, I looked at the state code and the maximum size in state code and considered your request to have a smaller size sign so that Parowan businesses could compete in the price market for signs, and came up with those numbers. So I think a state sign is like can be up to 1,000 square feet. And so we're down at 675.
Okay.
And I'll entertain suggestions. This is not me saying, here's what it's gotta be. This is me saying, here's what I came up with. If we want it changed, then, now is a good time to have a bit of a discussion about that.
I was, personally thinking more like, 6 by 12, so it's significantly different than, because that size right there, I called, Yesco and was talking to them, and the cheapest is $750, but they go up to $14,000 a month for rent, so.
But, I feel like this is giving them an option to do that size if you want, and then if they can afford that, then go ahead and let them afford the bigger one.
But I think what the thing is that if we allow this maximum size, then Yesco and Lamar and those businesses are going to come in and lease that land, and they're gonna just put up the biggest size possible. Whereas if we have a restriction on the size, it's gonna discourage those companies, the big companies that charge so much, to then be that landowner, like the landowner that came in here and he was wanting to put up signs.
But it's his
From-
decision, though, if he
Well-
wants to rent that to Yesco or not.
Right, but what I'm
So-
saying is that I think, at least what I recall from his discussion, he was talking about creating those signs himself, kind of thing, according to
He
code.
can totally still do that. I mean, it's his decision, he's the owner. So I just think if we give them an option, it's going to benefit the landowner. That
It'll
way,
benefit the landowner, it will not benefit Parowan
But
City
you
as
don't know
much.
that, though.
We already have it, example out there.
But you can't say that every single sign that's big is not gonna benefit Parowan. I mean, it's benefiting the landowner that lives here, and it's really his decision whether he wants to allow those signs and make that money off of it or not. I think if we're gonna go and say you can do billboards, but you can only do this little size because, you know, we don't want anything that's not promoting Parowan is not, I mean, I wouldn't like that if I was a
And
landlord.
Heather, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, your approach coming at this is not from the sign builder, but from the person who's renting the sign.
Yes.
You're under the presumption that Parowan businesses
Businesses.
will be renting those signs to promote their business, obviously in Parowan,
Yes,
and if it's something they can't afford, then
Right.
Joe Blow Company in
right,
Beaver or whatever is,
or,
whatever, yeah.
not Flying J, but you know what I mean? All I'm saying is that if we have a restriction on it being a minimal size, a small size, that the chances of Parowan businesses, Dry Lakes, being able to afford to advertise out on I-15, or Calvarios, or the various events that we have with the Christmas lights, or that kind of thing, the chamber would be able to be more likely to advertise if it was $100 a month, which granted, we can't control what they'll charge,
Yeah.
but all I'm
Still
saying is,
have that option, though. If they have that, if they
they're
have
they're
the
gonna
lot,
go with
but-
they're gonna go with the big guys, 'cause they're gonna make more money.
Yeah, but it's still their option and their decision. You're trying, I don't know, I feel like you're trying to control their land and their decisions on their lot, which I don't think that's necessary.
Well, no, I'm not, if
If
that was the
their
case,
land
I
and
would
their
say
decision, their
no
lot, I don't feel
billboards.
like
If
we
that
should.
was,
Excuse
Yeah.
me, one at a
Yeah.
time.
I mean, if I was saying that I was not thinking about the landowner, then I would say we shouldn't have billboards. All I'm saying is, this is a way that the landowner could make some money off of the land by having small billboards that then will hopefully be affordable and be able to promote more of local activities, local businesses. That's it. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, but I think the landowner gets that decision. So, I mean, if they want to promote that, they still can, 100%.
So just as we talk through this, and I'm listening to the, I see both sides of this discussion. So right now, the text says 675 square feet, and some maximum heights and widths. Heather's proposing a sign on the order of 6 foot by 12 foot. That's 72 square feet. From my perspective, I almost hate to say it this way, I don't view that as being a billboard. I view that as being a sign that would be in town in front of a storage unit or a grocery store.
It would be barely
Probably
noticeable.
the market
Yeah.
as a-
You know, as you're speeding by at 75, 80 miles an hour, a sign of that size, you probably wouldn't even draw your attention. So therefore, that money, I think, is wasted. I also appreciate, I appreciate both sides of the story as well. Excuse me for interrupting, Larry.
No, go ahead, please.
But I look at it on both sides of that fence too. I had property on the freeway up until last year. And one of my visions for that property, who was leasing it, to Yesco, et cetera, God bless them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think if you needed to change that, Heather, we might consider expanding the number on that property, rather than the size, but the number of, that puts both of those people in perspective. Yesco can have their 675 square footer, and Parowan Cafe or Dry Lease Beach can have their 75 footer. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words,
But I think there's code, right, on spacing?
Yes, exactly. So there is state code on spacing of billboards. And it's something on the order of somewhere between 500 and 1,000 feet. I don't remember which.
And do they have size restrictions on that? Like, would they consider a 6x12 a billboard?
They don't talk about how small of a billboard can be.
I think,
They talk about maximum size of a billboard, and I think technically, it would be called a billboard. I mean, me
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
just looking at it, and if you, driving down the road, if I was having a casual conversation with somebody about billboards and they asked, I would say, well, that's not a billboard, I'm not sure why that's even there,
Yeah.
is probably what I would be thinking. But anyway, that said, I actually kinda like what Jerry's saying, but we'd have to make some kind of a spacing, statement. So let me, before we belabor this too much, just know that the state code, there's the Utah Outdoor Advertising Act, which is part of state code, and then there's some number of chapters that I wish I could tell you how many there are, but they are hard to read through and understand. The UDOT people have their own section of state code that applies to signs, or billboards, if you will. And so when you read through that, what you find out is, before anything happens, even if we grant them a permit, UDOT must also grant them a permit. And so we're not at liberty to violate that state code. So there are many, many things written in here that I've just pulled pieces from state code and converted it so it reads Parowan City, and in a few places I might have tightened up the distances or something. Because remember, we can't be more liberal than the state, we can be tighter than the state. And depending on how it's worded in the state code.
But you gotta justify it. If you become more stringent, you gotta justify it.
No, we just have to put it in code, it's okay.
Without any justification or
Uh-huh.
anything.
Yeah. If they say something is 1,000 feet and we say, no, it's 500 feet, it's okay.
You don't have to tell them why, 500 feet.
No, but it does have to be stricter. So if they say they have to be 1,000 feet apart, and we say, it sounds like a smaller number, right? They only have to be 500 feet apart? No, that's not the case. They would have to be over 1,000 feet apart for us to be stricter. Right, but we can't cut down the spacing between billboards that are on the Interstate 15 corridor. Now, if we were talking about in town, we would just have a whole different ballgame here. So,
But you didn't want to, I mean, in this discussion, you didn't want to talk about any billboards in town.
No.
Because there's other restrictions,
No.
there's historical districts and different things that restrict that, so. This isn't very significant, but it does mean, that, you know, in here, on, page 2, under owner, and it says it means the entity that holds legal possession of a sign or the owner of the property in which the sign is located. you're kind of, that needs to be defined, that you're talking about, I know what they're saying, you know, the owner can be the owner of the property, but, you know, you're talking about a billboard. So the owner of that billboard, you know,
Where are
it
you-
says or, it's under owner at the top of page 2,
Oh.
where it says rough draft. 'Cause it says owner means the entity that holds legal possession of a sign, or the owner of the property on which the sign is located. So, you know, the owner of the property may not be the owner of the billboard, the sign. And you could have a conflict of ownership there, based on that definition.
I will go look at state code, and if there was just one, we could do that right now, but
Yeah.
there's not, and it'll take me 2 hours to figure out which piece of code that's in. No, actually, it'll be probably in the definitions. But I'll
Wait.
check, that might actually be the state definition.
Really, because that could be a conflict.
Can I make a,
Sure you can.
You bet.
Yeah, so
turn
that,
on
I think that is the definition, so that's just part of the definitions, just defining what the word owner is. I don't think
yeah.
it's saying
And I see what
there's
they're
a conflict, but
saying.
it's just saying the word used
Yeah.
within this document, owner, could be one or the other. So
Okay.
as a definition. And
Yeah.
coming back to your guys' points, what you're saying, the billboard sign, what is a sign? It defines it right there, it's just any advertising structure, it doesn't matter, so billboard's just anything, it doesn't, it's any sign or structure, so that's what, it's just defining that already in this document, so those are they're, if that makes any sense, it's just,
Yes, thank you.
so I don't know if it's, especially on the owner, if it's a conflict, but it's just defining.
Yeah,
it's a-
I
it's- It's
understand.
not a straight definition, 'cause it could mean
Right.
this or this, depending on where
If
you're
you were
reading
going
it.
to question it
Yes,
in
where you're
that
reading it.
context,
Mhm.
there could be a conflict.
Yeah, the code gets pretty,
But I see what you're
Interesting.
saying about the definition, yes, I understand, agree, thank
The-
you.
the code gets pretty interesting when it talks about the owner, because there's places where you have to notify the owner, and it can be the sign owner, or it can be the property owner, because there's contracts, and it's not very easy to figure that out sometimes as to who owns it or what's going on. But I will check that owner definition just to see.
Well, I didn't wanna, you know, I understand what, you know, Tony's saying, and I agree, and it's because it's in the definition, but I'm just saying if it was used in that context, it could be,
Well, it is in that context because of the definition,
yeah.
right? So any place in the document that you use the word owner, it actually means the owner of the billboard or the owner of the property on which the sign is located.
Mhm.
So,
as a definition, yeah, I understand it, thank you.
so, I will look at that, and if there's an or in there, or not an or in state code, I'll fix that. So, let's go back to number 7 and see if we can't hammer something out there.
What about half the size? 288, 300 square feet. If nobody else is interested, then we can just move on.
Well, to move this on, let's just do this way. Those in favor of reducing the 675 square feet to another number, raise your hands.
I guess we're moving on.
Okay, 675 stands. Anybody in favor of increasing that number, raise your hand.
And again, Larry, tell me what the standard of the industry is. I mean, if I go down the I-15 corridor from St. George to Salt Lake,
Yeah,
what, you told me it's 1,000 square feet, is that the
and
number
I
you-
think it's 1,000 in
Yeah.
Utah.
I still don't understand why we would vary from that.
Well,
And again, I do understand all of the reasonings. One of the things I can tell you is these are tremendously important pieces of advertising. And you can, every person, every business that's involved in this cinnamon roll thing can attest that those two silly billboards, one going north and one going south, have brought in and continue to bring in mass quantities of people off the freeway, just with those two signs.
I'd be interested to know what the size of them are. Because they're not up high, you know, they're down lower, they're not on the...
I can...
We have a big one right in the middle of town, and I believe we get a grant for that for $10,000 that Cedar City Tourism, helps pay for that. I didn't know
I'm gonna tell you in just about 2 seconds.
yeah, I'm like, oh,
I'm sorry, did you say 10,000 a month?
10,000 totally.
Jet, you have to
for a
answer
year?
the question, you're talking, to planning and zoning. What is the size of the billboards for the cinnamon rolls? Do you know the size? Okay. Okay, are they the same size as the neighboring billboards, plus or minus? I mean, tell me. Smaller.
Smaller.
Okay, very well, but you, and you have the number, but it's not in your head, it's in your possession at the office. Thank you, Jet, thank you.
The sign that we do have in the middle of the town is the bigger one though, that says this is how we roll, and it's got the skiing and the biking and the cinnamon roll in the middle.
Doesn't your buddy own that sign?
What's that?
Doesn't your buddy own that sign?
The one in the middle of town.
My buddy?
I don't know who.
Do I have a buddy?
I guess not, sorry.
I'm like, I don't know who owns that property.
You're my buddy, Larry. But again, I can only attest, and I don't know if it's because of the size or the shape or the color, but I mean, those silly things have been tremendous assets.
Doesn't Diane Bixman own that sign?
Oh, you know, it's
I
very
think it is.
possible because
I
they
think it
do
is Jerry
own
Diane.
they used to own the property there.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely correct, I stand corrected, that's owned by Jerry and Diane Beck.
I'm gonna tell him you're not his buddy.
So, Jerry, just to clarify that, that's $833 a month.
That's,
And that
that's for the big one, that's not for the smaller actual cinnamon rolls one. This is the big one that says this is how we roll, Bryan Head, Cedar City Tourism, like the big one.
Is that going
It's right in the middle of
south
town.
or right in the middle of
It's
town?
off the freeway exit?
It's off the
If
free,
you're going.
Oh,
well, it's the one right in the middle of town.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be in between both exits. We have one off to the right in
If you're
town.
going north, it's on the right-hand side.
Mhm,
It's on the freeway, but
Yeah, it's on the,
Okay.
mhm.
Yeah, I know which one, it's
Mhm.
by the storage units.
Yeah,
it's right by
Yep.
the station.
Is that regulated by the state?
Yes,
I mean, I'm talking about DOT.
yes.
Yeah.
They have a permit for that sign that dates back quite a ways.
Mhm.
And, there's another one, I don't remember which direction it is on the road, that also has a permit. And for those of you that are interested, you can actually go on to DOT's website and look at billboard stuff. And they actually have a map, and every one of those billboards has a number. And you can click on the spot where that billboard is, and it'll bring up the number and a whole bunch of information about it. And you would never probably care about that, but I don't know if any of you have noticed when you're headed back from Cedar City at night, there's a Yesco sign as you're entering town, and the little Yesco logo on the bottom is blinking.
Mhm.
That's illegal.
Mhm.
That's malfunctioning.
Mhm.
And if someone called and reported it, they would fix it.
Oh, wow.
But blinking like that is illegal on a billboard sign. So as we stand now, we indicated, we don't wanna make that smaller. Is there any interest in making that a larger size? I'm not hearing anything, I'm assuming that means no.
My only concern would be if the standard is 1,000 square feet and you were doing an oddball, making it a maximum of 675, maybe that's a more expensive sign for the sign owner to do because it's not the common,
Because
the
it's custom.
Yesco, and it's more of a custom sign. Maybe we do raise it to the 1,000 just to with the,
Talk about
Excuse me, with-
building and fabrication?
yeah,
Oh, I see, interesting.
yeah, I mean, maybe, you know,
Yeah,
a
there's
lot
a
of things have standards.
Right, yeah.
Tip,
By the standards.
Cut and paste kind of a deal.
Yeah, mhm.
I just, Google says, standard billboard sign is what I Googled, and it came up with the 14 by 48. So I don't know,
Okay.
but that's Google, I don't know what the, yeah, just like,
He's a pretty smart dude.
Can I just ask a question? Have we had requests from people to make it smaller? Is that why?
No.
Okay,
Heather?
just me.
okay.
Because Jerry just made the point of the fact that the cinnamon roll has brought in great business, and so advertising on the highway is beneficial for us. Then I
Affordability
took it
for the local
to,
businesses. That-
yeah,
That's,
Okay,
and then I
that-
took it to
that's
the
it.
next step of,
and
well, if you
I
make it
appreciate
smaller,
that.
Thank
yeah.
you.
If Alvarez probably couldn't afford the $888 a month that, city or
The chamber.
Chamber of Commerce is ponying up for the one sign. You know what I'm saying? So,
That's with the sign and like the maintenance on it and them putting it up and everything too, so,
yeah.
yeah, that's everything. But, yeah, I totally understand how it's not as affordable.
So, part of my thinking in making this, 48 by 16, so to speak, one or the other, because that's what size a sheet of plywood is, or a couple sheets of plywood, or 4 sheets, or 3 sheets of plywood. And
Oh,
so there are multiples that, you know, if you make it 14 feet, you've got a 8 and a 6, which I know people cut plywood and everything, but it seems like it's a waste to, so that's
But
kind of
if
the
you-
space I'm in.
And yet, Larry,
If you increase the maximum, then they still have the option to do smaller and to do these sizes that you talk about, using the different, quantitative measurements, you
Yes.
know, so you're not restricting them if you were to raise it up, is what I'm saying, and then people still have the option, 'cause
reduce.
my concern is like Jamie mentioned earlier, if you get into causing any restrictions on private property, you need to be careful.
Well, it needs to be codified and it needs to be consistent.
Yeah, I know.
That's the biggest concern.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, is there anywhere in here, or should it say somewhere that, if state code changes, 'cause most of this is state code, right?
Yeah, a big piece of it. Yeah, probably, I would, say most is probably a safe thing.
So I'm wondering if state code changes, if we should say somewhere, or,
So if you will hold that thought
all right,
and let me work through these, it's at one of the ones that we're not looking at right now. but
Number
yes.
6, I think, answers one of the questions that somebody brought up, the 600 feet from an
Oh,
existing.
there it is, yeah.
I just saw it, so that's why I was pointing it out to you.
Right.
And Heather, what did Google say that average size was? 600 and what?
What we have. Well,
14.
no, yeah, what we previously had, the 48 by 14, but then it was switched to 16 feet is the standard. So according to Google, we're working with standard numbers.
All right, I'm moving on from number 7, and then I'm thinking we are not gonna make a change there. If somebody would like a change in number 7, make a motion, and we'll vote on it, otherwise we'll move on. All right, down to number 11. So changeable message signs are permitted if the interval between message changes is not more frequent than at least 10 seconds, and the actual message rotation process is accomplished in 3 seconds or less. So here we're talking about those signs that have a rotational capability. They must be printed on triangles or something, or a two-sided piece, and they flip every now and again. there is an option there. We could actually just say changeable message signs are not permitted if we wanted to.
I haven't seen one of those in a long time. Has anybody else?
Oh, in Cedar,
In Cedar?
traveling south, yeah,
They change?
Isn't it,
It's
No, not digital, not digital.
I'm
This
so
is-
sorry, you're absolutely correct, it's a digital sign.
Yeah, no, the one that Larry's bringing up is the ones that will spin, like you said, it's like on a triangle.
Oh,
So it'll be like 3 different signs that, but I haven't seen one of those in a long time. I don't know if they're,
those are from the eighties.
that'd be a mechanical nightmare, wouldn't it be, to build and maintain and all that stuff?
They're a big deal in Vegas, in the Vegas Valley. I mean, there's.
yeah, you're
There's a
right.
lot
I
of them
have
there.
seen them in
Yeah.
Vegas.
Why do I know that? 'Cause I'm always trying to see what one of them was. What was that?
Yeah, which is a downside, 'cause
Yes.
it's keeping, it's detracting from what you should be doing, which is watching the road.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm the same way with that digital sign in Cedar, like, oh, did I miss that, oh, what's next, and all that kind of crap, and you say, wait a minute now, I don't think it's such a good idea.
Yeah, I would say that, my opinion
I
would
mean,
be
yes,
that we
yes,
don't
it's
permit them.
It's a 3-fer or a 2-fer for the owner, but I think for safety reasons, it's a hazard.
Well, that said, let's vote on that. All in favor of permitting changeable message signs, raise your hands.
I think we had 2.
We have 2. All the nays, raise your hands. The nays have it. So we're going to, I'm going to change the wording in changeable message signs to are not permitted.
I don't wanna jump ahead. Are we doing, is digital sign in your adjustments at all?
I don't think so.
And
I
just,
apologize for that.
that's okay. I was,
Note, and I didn't act.
I was just gonna say, you know, with that document that I had read from, dated last summer, it says language needs to be added to your existing ordinance stating explicitly that digital electric billboards or the conversion of existing billboards is permitted or not permitted. We need to specify that, so I don't know if we can just tag it on there.
You mean, yes. So, just, we can do one of 2 things. You can read that to me again slower, so I can write it down,
Oh, sure,
and I'll make the change, or you can send me an email.
it's highlighted. Language.
So Heather, I have a comment about these digital signs. I know the people that own the one in Cedar. Those are really profitable, but they're also economical for the businesses, 'cause I know depending on how long of a time frame your message
Mhm.
stays on there, you can get your advertising for a lot less.
My argument or my opinion on that is that it causes more accidents.
Yeah, it probably does.
Yeah,
I'm
and
just
so I think I would
I'm just
rather,
saying for the local business owner, if this helps in our discussion, those ones are more affordable for
Yeah.
a local business to advertise on, 'cause if you got on there for 5 seconds or whatever it is, you might be $300 or $400 a month
mhm.
versus the guy that had the longer time.
Yeah, I know that there's a time requirement, I think it's 8 seconds or 10 seconds or something like that as a
Yeah.
minimum, but yeah, no, I would just, when it comes to that, I favor on the safety than the affordability.
Thank you. So, okay.
Larry, can I interject
Yes.
with a question?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm, again, thinking out loud, listening to everybody. Can we, as a group, enforce a maximum per square foot fee? can we do it as a body? I mean,
I
obviously, we're not the owner of the sign, we're not the owner of the property.
No, I don't think so,
Yeah,
Okay,
no.
I tend to think we can't, but I'll be honest, I don't know the
okay.
correct answer
I mean,
to
that
that.
kinda, you know what I'm saying, plays both sides. Make it affordable for local businesses and yet, you know, I mean, I know you would object to that because your proponent is to the landowner slash
Well, no,
leasee.
I would love to promote, you know, like, small businesses, but I guess I'm just going to say it. I don't think a lot of Parowan residents, owners, would buy it or promote it on there. I mean, if you go around to even all these small towns, they're not advertising billboards on Main Street, Beaver, Enoch, you know what I mean? Like, all these small, you're not gonna, like, I really don't think that Parowan businesses are gonna use that
Unless
as
it's,
an option.
unless it's a
And
big,
that's just my personal opinion.
I know
business
that Dry
like a
Lakes-
creamery, I mean, the
Dry Lakes,
creamery's
yeah.
nuts with them, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
look what traffic comes off that road.
Mhm.
Holy guacamole.
But your
7
local
days a
mom and
week.
pop shop and stuff like that, I really don't see them usually not.
I see,
Mhm.
interesting.
All right, so to be able to move this along, so I have a piece, and I'll just say I'm proposing it. A piece of language that we would insert about here in the vicinity of that changeable message signs that we just said are not permitted. We would say digital electronic billboards, or the conversion of existing billboards to digital and electronic billboards is prohibited along the I-15 corridor. Now, that said, all in favor of inserting that language, show of hands, in favor? Two ayes. All not in favor, raise your hands.
I'm terribly conflicted.
3 nays, the nays have it, so these will be allowed. At least that'll be our recommendation. All right, so down under B, the intermittent, flashing light sources being prohibited. I recommend that we leave that as is. That's talking really about signs that put things on that flash at you as you're going by to grab your attention. And as I mentioned earlier, right now, even in state code, that is prohibited. Is there any other discussion on that? Does somebody have a different opinion or an observation there?
Okay,
Jerry?
I'm back to the local businesses, and I'm back to advertising there. And Jamie's comment about if they would and if they wouldn't, Heather's comment about if it's affordable, et cetera. Why would they need to be lit at all? If it's,
Well, this is with a digital, so it obviously has to be lit
Yeah, yeah.
because it's a digital sign.
okay,
Well,
Not
not
like a,
Yeah, not
not like an
necessarily.
outer light shining at it, but the actual sign itself is a
Yeah, yeah.
light.
okay.
Well, so number 12B is not necessarily that. They're talking about the lighting / illumination of the sign. That's pretty much so you can read it at night. But if you're talking about an electronic billboard and it's got flashing or intermittent lights on it, those are prohibited. We could allow those in our code, but you'll never get one on the I-15 corridor because state code prevails. And we would be being more lenient than state code. The reason I highlighted this was it was a bit confusing to me as to whether that's an electronic billboard or a lit billboard or what it is. And basically, it's describing an electronic billboard that has intermittent flashing light sources.
So, I make a comment, so in the definition, again, going back, it does not say that, it just says it's a controlled image or video, not anything about a flashing light, so you might have a contradiction between electronic display screen for the definitions.
You're talking about the electric display screen?
Yeah, 'cause it says means a billboard or a sign that displays a controlled message or video, has nothing to do about flashing signs, so I think it's just different parts to that.
All right, thanks, Jake.
Just wanna make sure we're clear on the, just because of the wording in B, in 12B, 'cause it says electronic billboard signs.
Yeah.
So, but if we wanna control it as a flashing light, it might need to be something different.
I guess what I'm interpreting is like, if you think of, a digital or electric sign, and then, like, sale,
Right.
flashing is what I'm
That's, yeah,
saying, that's what's prohibited.
right.
Oh, yeah.
Or a thing that has a bison
Yeah.
Yeah,
running
yeah,
across the bottom of the sign in a digital format.
Yeah.
that's what I was reading that,
Yeah, perhaps maybe if you change it, just say signs which contain intermediate, so you're not, because didn't we say no? Didn't you guys just vote and say no?
no,
Electronic.
No, we voted for it.
they voted for
Okay.
for digital.
Okay, so for digital, all right. So this is just for the flashing on the digital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we good? Okay, I'm moving on. Thank you, Tony, by the way. All right, we get all the way back to page 6. So the last iteration, we didn't have any, I didn't have any non-conforming billboard stuff written. We have current city code for non-conforming signs, and I looked at that. And if you read the state code for non-conforming billboard signs, it's actually, it alarms me. And the reason I say that is because if a municipality or a county or the state tells you that your sign is non-conforming and you have some amount of time to take it down and you're not allowed to maintain it or do anything, the municipality has to actually buy that sign.
Oh,
Oh.
And I looked at that and I said, it just about turned my stomach.
Wow.
If you read that code, you'll be shocked at what that says. So,
Wow.
and I couldn't get through it all, because they talked about using eminent domain in some cases to pop these signs out of place. They talk about the Utah Outdoor, so the Utah Outdoor Advertising Act, which is what is really the Billboard and Sign Act, fell out of, I think, some federal legislation back in 1967. And I think I think then Utah wrote the Outdoor Advertising Act to support the federal law. And so they use that date as a date to talk about conforming and non-conforming. There's another part of it that says if you tell somebody they can't have it there, they have the option to move it to another place. Yeah, and put it in where you may not want it. And to me, it got really dicey. I'll find that piece of state code and I'll email it to everybody. And you read those 2 or 3 pieces and you see what you think about it. Because, like I say, it alarms me to the point that I'm going, it sounds like once you get a billboard, you've got a billboard.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we have code, this number 4 that's highlighted where it says within 3 years there. That's directly out of our city code on signs.
I think that sounds like a long time.
Well, basically, when it became non-conforming, it was from the date some of our code was written, so it might have been 2016
Uh-huh.
or early. If it was earlier, it was probably 2005. But once they became non-conforming, they had 3 years to remove them.
That
But-
seems like a long Time's
But
given
it's
to
a long
remove it.
time ago and they weren't removed and,
Yeah.
there's probably not any, interest in pressing that right now. Till we learn a lot more about billboards.
Okay,
Just know that when somebody comes in and wants to put a billboard up, they have to have a permit from Parowan City. Once they have a Parowan City permit, they're then able to go to UDOT and go through the UDOT process. And UDOT is pretty much gonna control most of that.
okay.
And so my big question here becomes the last item that's highlighted. The Utah Billboard Sign Code is comprehensive and somewhat onerous. You could take out the somewhat if you wanted. And then the question is, do we need a disclaimer to point back to the state code, which is the point Judy made? And really, my recommendation coming in here to discuss these issues with the commission is, so I've pulled together this code. I'm not gonna take credit for writing it because a bunch of it's plagiarized, but there is a lot of work involved in pulling that all together. And as I looked at it, I went, I could spend the rest of my life, I would say career, but I'm retired, so the next thing is something else. So anyway, my thought was that it needs to go to legal now. And we need legal to really look at it as it sits. I can fix those couple, 3 things that we talked about to make that clear. And we probably need to get some feedback. 'Cause I look at this going to legal and I go, this is not one of these little things like, curb and gutter or hard surface.
Yeah, yeah.
This is
This
way
is big.
deeper than that, and legal is not gonna be able to look at this and just go, you know,
Okay.
yeah, it looks good to me.
Yeah.
There are gonna be lots of comments, or they might tell us we're crazy, I don't know. But, so remember, so we have, from back in the summer, we had a person that bought property along Interstate 15 that lives up in, I think, the Ogden area, that was asking for this code change, which is what really got this ball rolling. Since then, Dan Jessen has indicated that he's had at least 2 other people request, billboards. And I think he's probably told them, well, we're working on this code. So, that said, I'm interested in any comments you all have about this or what you wanna do with it. But from my perspective, unless somebody really wants to take this and like walk through it or do something with it and bring comments back to the group, I believe we're at a position to move it to legal and get some feedback.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree.
I wanted to bring up just as a question that y'all had before was the state code for Utah has a maximum area of 1,000. The maximum area length is 60 and the height was 25.
Yeah, so that's the
That
maximum.
is Utah, that's Utah code,
So let me ask you one question about that.
so.
So the maximum height, that 25, is that 25 feet for the face of the billboard or 25 feet above the ground?
It just says
Billboard.
25 feet.
It's
Okay.
billboard,
Okay.
yeah.
60 by 25, you said?
Yep,
Is the
60 by
maximum.
25. yeah. 1,000 square feet is the max.
And then the standard is what Google said, 14 by 48 or whatever that was.
So notice there that 60 by 25 mathematically does not come out to 1,000.
No.
Right.
Comes to
Yeah.
over 1,200 or something.
So that state, is that UDOT, or is that just?
It's Utah.
Well, that'll be UDOT. So the state
So
has,
UDOT could approve 1,000 feet,
no,
they couldn't?
Well,
not in Parowan, they won't.
yeah,
If we go through with our code, they'll defer to our code.
yeah,
Because we are stricter than this, we are smaller than the
Yeah.
state code. So we're stricter, and they're like, okay.
yeah, we can't go and say, well, we wanna have a 1,200 square foot sign.
Yeah, I understand that, but I still am confused why you wanna restrict it smaller?
My reason?
Yeah.
My reason is because of the exact, what Jerry's saying. Jerry's saying that the cinnamon roll advertisements has brought business in to Parowan.
Mhm.
I am a local business owner, and I can't afford.
So what you're saying is the competition.
I'm saying that if the landowner has the ability to have a 48 by 15, whatever that's, what we're saying, 675 square feet,
Mhm.
that's the maximum size. I personally don't think that that landlord or landowner is going to say, well, you know what, let me put in something smaller and make less money, when I can go to Yesco and lease that amount.
Right.
So, right, and so what I'm
that's
saying
what I'm
as,
saying.
and I'm saying that as, a citizen, and us, if, we're gonna sit here and go through the painstaking, or Larry go through the painstaking process of drafting
we are
this.
doing it.
Yeah, of drafting this, if we restrict, 'cause we can, as a town,
I understand
we
that.
can
I
restrict this.
understand that.
So then what don't you understand and
Is
what my
why you
attorney-
would want to do that.
So that I know that Dry Lakes wants to advertise out on I-15.
Okay, but if
But
that
they can't-
landowner wants to lease it to somebody that they can make more money off from, then they should have that option to do that.
And I'm saying that as a town, we can say no billboards. So they can make no money, or we can say, hey, you make money, and hey, let's benefit our town by being able to have our local events, our local businesses, and
They still can, if they want to.
they
and
can't
have that
afford it.
option.
They can't afford it.
But you don't know that. Maybe the landowner will allow them to do that, and they can negotiate that.
They're gonna,
You're taking that negotiation
no,
away.
they're not
from
going
them.
to. They're not going to.
You don't know that.
They haven't yet. Why would they?
Does the state have a minimum size it can be?
No, just maximum.
Because it seems like if it was smaller though, that would be more of a deterrent. 'Cause
It would,
people
yes,
be
Co.
going
Yeah.
down to look at the sign, I don't know, I was just.
I don't know. I think my thought logic and the less is that the smaller size, which I've already said, would deter the Yescos, the Lamars. It would create,
But then you're right back to what I'm saying. You are infringing upon the negotiation of private property.
and as a town, we have that right.
And so
as a-
you just wanna ban them,
No, well, yeah.
take all of that
I
option
wa-
away
well,
from
I
everybody.
When I found out that we couldn't, restrict and say only Parowan businesses, then yeah, right at that point, I did say.
But you are restricting, if you allow them to have that ability, they can still do that small.
They're not going to.
You don't know that.
Then, you know what? I will come back to you on the day when somebody takes the option of having a smaller sign and getting less money, and I will say, I'm sorry,
Maybe they
you are
don't-
correct.
Yeah, but maybe they wanna take that option to support that business or the community or whatever, but that is their prerogative, not for you to decide.
I disagree.
I don't.
But we've already beat this to death, so.
Okay, I'm gonna take a minute and just remind everybody that, so, we went through all the pros and cons that we could come up with for billboards back in the summer. Since it's likely that once we get something back from legal and figure out where we wanna go with this, that we're gonna vote to make a recommendation, one way or another which is gonna end up either allowing billboards or not allowing billboards. Because if we're gonna allow them, we'll be working on code, like we're doing now. If we're not gonna allow them, then
It's a moot
we
point.
vote, it's a moot point. But just recall that there is no revenue in this for the city. Well, let me rephrase that. There is no direct revenue in this for the city. There will be permit fees, but they're about once every 5 years, and I think we figured before that when they amortized the sign, that it was, I don't remember, it's $30 or $300 a year over time was what the city netted for a sign, and on our I-15 corridor,
And if the businesses are advertising on there, they're gonna collect sales tax.
right.
So there's a revenue source there.
So, right, so there's the indirect revenue sources that's almost intangible, right? We can't directly attribute that this sale was
Right, right.
because that billboard was on the freeway, but I concede that yes, that would happen.
And we need to remember, this is only on an area that is incorporated, that's within the city
Yeah.
limits.
It's in the city, we have.
Anything outside of that, the city has no control over.
Well, now, there's a good question, Dave. So between the city line on the south and the city line on the north, divided by whatever that distance is between signs, how many signs can we offer?
Exactly.
Is it
Maybe that's
10,
something that needs to
20?
be evaluated.
Well, we can look at that.
No.
So the easiest way to do that is bring up the zoning map
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
and look at the zoning map. It's gotta be commercial and or industrial.
Yeah.
Then there's some secondary considerations that could be looked at.
I think that's gonna be different too, 'cause that's based on whoever puts up the sign, the spacing will dictate from there how many, so
Right.
we can't say it's X amount, 'cause you can't force someone to stick it in a certain spot. If they own more land, wherever they put, it has to be X amount from that sign, so it
Right.
could all change based on where they put the sign, of how many.
We could make
You could
some
guess,
assumptions. We
yeah.
could make we could optimize it. We
Yeah.
could say, if it went exactly this way, the most we'd ever have would
Correct.
be this number. If we wanted to do that, but you're exactly right. If somebody plants one somewhere and doesn't do any measuring, and says, this is where I want it because I like these trees or something,
Yeah, yeah.
that reduces the count. It can't increase it, it'll only reduce it. The other big consideration is you can't be within about 200 feet of another property line or a residential zone.
Right.
And so, what is isn't our mileage along Interstate 15 like 5 miles?
It's from exit,
I don't-
it's just a little bit
I
beyond
don't-
exit to exit.
Hmm?
It's just a little bit beyond exit to exit,
Yeah.
but it's not far.
78.
I mean, and
Yeah.
again, that's evidenced by those cinnamon roll signs. There were some options that they had, but it was narrowed considerably because of the, that distance there.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that and see if I can't get something together before the next meeting.
Yeah, you know what?
If anybody else wants to do a count, I mean, feel free, but you.
What I'd like to do, and I can do it, after I get back from my vacation, is go to the businesses and say, tell me what you think. If this was offered to you, would you be willing to do that? And
Do what, though?
to rent a billboard, and what can you afford, like Dry Lakes Beef? What can Casey afford per year to have X amount of cars advertise her store, I mean, it's all percentages, it's all numbers, again.
Well, I like that concept, but I believe to get some information that would be worth something you would need to have a range of prices.
Yeah.
Because the guy says, well, I wanna pay $100 a month for a sign, and you go, well, you can't buy anything for $100 a month these days.
Right.
And that sort of a thing, so you've gotta at least know what the range is for billboards of some size, the great big ones and the other ones. And then ask the question, because you may get some people that say, I would never be able to afford that unless something changes drastically.
So Jamie, you're saying you don't think the businesses would support it? 'Cause see, in the other aspect, you look, okay, you're restricted to so many. So does the city want to promote just for local businesses, giving them the opportunities, like you say, using certain sizes and things, which would restrict the bigger companies and just allow the businesses, is that what the city wants to do? 'Cause it's limited, in this discussion, some other things have come to light, because when you think of the limited amount, because of all the restrictions with the different zonings, with the different regulations and the actual property and the spacing between property lines and things, there may not be opportunity for a whole lot, and maybe you want to just, capitalize on, local businesses some way.
I think one thing we're also overlooking is we're making a lot of assumptions, and we're assuming that someone's even going to put up the sign. You can't force the landowner to put up a sign. That's this initial assumption we're all making, that it's just going to happen. That's somebody else's property.
People come here and
Well, there's
Okay.
there's the gentleman who came, this gentleman that came with this wanting, yeah. And then you said that Dan has 2 other people that have inquired. So
and
there's
he-
at least 3.
We understand people ask, but we're still assuming
Yeah.
that they're going to do that, 'cause they have to pay for that sign to go up and to do that. So again, just 'cause someone makes an inquiry does not mean they're going to do it. That's just making an inquiry, period. So I think we're making a lot of assumptions. So with all that said, I don't know if this, going beyond that, is this something that we can just say, send it to legal, have them review it right now, we're not making a decision, so that we can actually have some additional discussions, send it, in the meantime, let them take a look, because this is big, and it has a lot of, scrutinized details that need to be gone over.
Right, so we had the vote.
Did we?
We had a vote to say, are we going forward with,
Oh, I thought
Writing
you were
the
saying to
code.
send it to legal.
No, I meant, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, yeah. I know we are going forward with doing this, but I'm just saying, is that
He's
kind of
saying-
the next step, that's why I'm
Send it
asking,
to
is
legal.
to
yeah, send it to legal.
we send it to legal, we get here's the holes in your code, here's the things that need to be fixed. Then there's a couple ways for us to do that. One, we fix it the best we can, based on the guidance we get from legal. And then we go, okay, we've done all that, we still think we wanna go forward and make a recommendation to city council. At that point, we make a vote, and if we do, then that code goes forward. Then there's gonna have to be a, public hearing, and that sort of a thing. So, here we are.
So, do you want me to make a motion?
say, can I make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead, can he make a
Fine.
motion?
Yes, I would entertain a motion.
Go for it.
I would like to make a motion to submit the proposed billboard ordinance, rough draft, to legal for review.
I second.
Changes that you're going to make.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
To
yes,
include
with the
two-
changes
two
to the electronic, yeah,
Yeah,
the electronic wording.
Who seconded, I'm sorry,
Oh, I did.
okay.
so Heather
Heather.
seconded it. Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it.
Yay.
Thank you all for that. Going forward, this is really not my favorite thing, 'cause it's got so much in it.
It's a lot.
I'd love it if legal came back and said, why don't you just point to state code? Throw all this away.
For state,
You're done.
for the state code.
But we gotta be able to get, permit money and stuff like that, 'cause it is our town that they're going through, so, very good. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Okay, we're to member reports. We're gonna leave you to last, Jamie,
Oh,
this time.
first.
I just I had a question for this committee as far as, I was looking into the Connex.
Yes.
Is there a specific purpose that we're addressing that code again? 'Cause I could not find any notes or anything, like, I know I was asked to address that. I have lots of examples of different codes, so I've been researching on
Oh.
Connex. I just wonder if there's a purpose that this committee wants to be written in that code, or why we're
Yes.
Yeah.
even looking at that
Yes.
again? Cause I know it just said, look at it, but I can't find a reason in any notes, so I wonder.
So the thin version of the background on that is we have an applicant.
I know, I remember the one that wants to use it in his house.
Right.
So is the purpose to try and change the code so that that person can then inhabitate those Connex boxes and stuff? Is that the purpose of redoing our code, or, like, I'm just, as a committee, does that make sense, like, why? I know we had a request, but then was just asked to look at the code, but is there a
Can I respond?
other?
Heather, go ahead.
Well, I had, I don't know if you were here the night that I had brought in examples of how these things have been used.
I was.
And I think that people were, interested in the idea of being able to utilize shipping containers for, as a building material.
Structural.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so whether it be, structurally inside the barn, like the gentleman was requesting, or, as, cladding it fully or partially to make it, an accessory dwelling unit on a property, mother-in-law suite or something like that. And I think everybody, and also potentially businesses, that there could be a possibility of being able to utilize them in various forms.
Thank you.
There was
Is
an
that-
actual request.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do know the request that was there. I just wondered, just from the committee, if that was a specific purpose, because there's so much to that. Again, same thing that we've been talking about with the others, that we could go all kinds of spots, but I just want to know if there's a specific area that I can focus on in the code as far as what we're really trying to address.
Judy would really like to share something with.
No, I really shouldn't, but what I was gonna say is, we shouldn't change the code for one person either.
That's where I'm going, that's my thought.
I mean, if you wanna look at it for all these other reasons, but I don't think, even Justin has said, or Christian,
No, I agree.
don't change the code for one person.
mhm.
Sorry.
I think that the code as written is usually referred, more as a storage unit. 20-foot storage container in their backyard that they keep hay in, or something that, it's not something that was lived in per se.
Yeah, and that's what I found for most of my, just to read.
And I don't think that code should change, if that's what,
Yeah.
from what I understand in the
So, all right.
history.
Well, let me continue here.
Sorry, I don't want to get
No,
too much.
that's okay. So the reason that this code would be changed at all is because, well, somebody's already mentioned it. The concept of using, cargo storage containers as structural components in buildings is fairly well documented.
Yeah, a lot of
And
people
they're-
are using it.
They are engineerable,
Mhm.
and it's done in other places. However, this body and the city council really, was extremely concerned about Connex containers specifically popping up in yards as cheap alternatives to storage containers and sheds and that sort of a thing. And so the code was born. And planning and zoning had a recommendation, it went to city council worked it over, and we have now what we have. And basically, we're not allowed by the existing code to have, Connex containers that are over 20 foot. And 20-footers, you can have, I think, 2, but they have to be permitted. And then there's all kinds of, as you know already, other restrictions.
Yep.
So along comes, we say a person, but it's really just somebody leading a charge that brings it back on the table. It says, here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to be able to use these Connex containers inside of a building, not even as a structural unit, that will be invisible. Now, by our code, that's not doable, because we just say you can't have any, period. And so we started talking about those changes, and then the next thing we started talking about as well should you be able to live in them, and should you be able to use them as structural components in buildings and that sort of a thing. And that's kind of where we are, and that's kind of what
We're looking to change is to
Right.
habitation.
And my recommendation to you and anybody that's modifying code in here, that when you step up and offer to do that, you're really bringing back options for this body to look at, consider, and reach some consensus on and move forward, or not, kind of a thing. So, pick
Thank
a position and,
Thank you, that was what I wanted to know, so I'm actually I'll have options for both
yeah.
sides, so.
Kinda like these, you know, here's a sentence that says, we can do this, we can do that on billboards, and who wants to do that and who doesn't, and,
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks for doing it.
yes.
I know, it's a lot of work.
I don't think it's easy, but,
Yeah.
It's not, I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
and I don't wanna put anybody on the hook, but you got any idea when we'll actually see
I haven't gotten my full, I have quite a lot of different city codes, and, most of the stuff from Utah are non-inhabitable, so that's why I was trying to figure out, I can't find a lot of good ones that do allow inhabitants in Utah in that, so that's why I wanted to come back to the committee to say, where are we going, what is the purpose, and what are we really trying to accomplish, because you can't define a structural bit without, anytime you say structure, you're inhabiting as well. So it's really not just the structure, because you can cover up something and call it a structure. You can drop a Connex box in and cover it up and say, it's covered, so it's structure, and then you can live in it, which there's two,
Yeah.
and every city that I pulled up, actually literally every city has been none. So if we're wanting to change that, I'm having a difficulty finding examples in Utah to change that to an inhabitable
Okay.
place.
So you all heard that?
Yeah.
So we have a member that's working on what I would say a difficult piece of code, so if you have ideas or examples or something,
To me.
send him an email, either attach something to it or just point him to it, give him a link.
I wonder if Cedar might have something, because like the new SWIG building is a Connex box.
Okay.
You know, like out,
And that's where I've been finding the definitions, which is, so I actually have a little draft of, we have to redo the entire thing because there's definitions of commercial versus residential, whatever.
Oh, okay.
That is a
Yeah.
commercial, it is not considered a residential,
Yep.
so there's different purposes, you cannot inhabit it, as far as the
Yeah.
residential, but you can work in it, but you
Work in
can't.
it,
Yes,
Got
so
it.
that's where all these definitions come into place, so we'd have to rewrite the code, redo all the definitions, everything to define very specifically residential versus commercial versus, that's, thank you, that's exactly what I've been finding.
okay.
So things like that, so when, at least I find when I work on code, very many things like that, we regress. You find things and you go, well, this worked, but if we're gonna work this new piece of code, we're gonna have to do something with it.
Yeah, we gotta redo,
And
yeah.
so make notes about those other
Well,
things.
I have lots, so, yeah.
Okay. Well, and I'm also around a lot, so if you ever wanna just sit down and kinda
Okay,
kick
cool.
some things around.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
We don't live very far apart.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's all from me, thank you.
Dave?
Wasn't Weston working on that with you?
Weston, yeah,
Okay. And then I was supposed to.
yeah, so that's why I was trying to get something together to,
Okay.
like as a final, so I can present it and talk to you about it, and,
Okay, well, I've been,
That'll help.
I'll talk.
okay, cool.
I don't have anything, Larry.
Okay, thanks. Dave? Heather?
I do not have anything.
Okay. Jamie?
I don't have anything.
Jerry?
I don't have anything, but I'm just looking at my calendar. I have a doctor's appointment in St. George on the scheduled next meeting that may conflict. I'm not sure, I will know more then, but
Just,
and it's gonna be almost a last minute thing. The appointment's at 9 a.m., but he's saying it could be 3 to 8 hours, so.
Larry, I'm sorry, Jerry.
No, I'm done.
Well, we wish you well at your appointment.
Yeah,
What about the training?
Oh, I was just gonna
I
ask
was
about
just gonna go
registration.
through that as
Okay.
Yeah,
go.
I figured you were.
So, just as you'll recall, Wednesday, January 11th, which is this one coming up, is the Planning and Zoning Land Use Seminar right here
At 5?
at 5 PM. You have to be registered.
And where do we
To
go to do that?
attend.
I couldn't figure that
It's
out.
online, so take this.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody
Perfect.
else need to know?
I can
where to
take a
register?
picture of this and then you can give it to someone else.
There's a lot in the office.
Anybody else
too,
need it?
If somebody wants one, we're
And
just
unfortunately,
in our
I will be
office.
gone then as well.
Oh, damn.
And your last name.
Anybody else want that?
You need it?
Sure, I'll take, yeah, thank you.
Anyway, but please attend. So just as a, oh, by the way, it's kind of interesting in rummaging through code and state code and stuff, what, you know, you run into all kinds of things and you go, wow. So I ran into this piece of code that says in the state that for certain municipalities, cities, councils, and so on, to be a planning and zoning member, you have to have a minimum of 4 hours training per year. And I went, wow, that's interesting. Then it goes on to tell you how you can get it, which this seminar qualifies. And it goes on to say that new members can't actually sit on the body like we have Tony and people do that are alternates can't sit on until they've had the training. And I was like, wow. Anyway, turns out you have to be what are we, a city of the 5th class? And we're in a county of the 3rd class, so that doesn't apply to us.
The
We're
training that I did with
under the
Judy, I
wire.
liked, with planning and zoning that I did back like a year ago, I guess.
Yeah, it also counts for realtors, this training.
Oh,
So, anyway,
I'm gonna include it in my
that
3 hours.
said, it is really good training.
Write
Just
it down.
know that, you know, if you're gonna move to Cedar, you're probably gonna have it.
Wait, this will count as CE hours for real estate agents?
Mhm.
Ha ha! Made me double come, no. I'm
So,
just talking.
I encourage you from this committee, please attend if at all possible.
Yeah.
If you can't, you would get benefit from the online piece that you can take, but there's so much interaction and stuff in these classes, it's really good. So I want to say that, please attend, and then, this coming Monday night at 6 PM at the high school is a
Birthday.
state water
Oh.
commission.
Yeah, state engineer.
State engineer,
He's gonna evaluate the underground water management plan.
there you go.
This Monday at 6
Monday
at the high
at 6
school?
at the high school.
So it's really kind of a big thing on the state
Everybody
water.
should be there.
Yeah. That is really important stuff for all of us, and even if it doesn't apply to the commission. I think
But it does.
well, it does, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it does.
What time was that, Larry?
Pardon me?
6.
6 PM.
6. Yep, and at the high school.
At the high school, I hate to say this, I've never been in the high school, so where
The
do,
auditorium,
It's in the auditorium.
on
so
the south end.
the dairy-free side,
No.
State bank.
Right across from State Bank. is
State
the
bank
entrance.
side,
Right,
okay, thank you.
right.
So it says 6 to 8:30.
Is that?
Okay.
Good.
6 to 8:30?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, bring my knitting.
That's another one that I would say, please attend, that kind of background information is really
So I'll have to
important.
cancel my cruise.
And there is a meeting, if you can't, there's also it's
Code
online
that
as
night?
well.
Okay,
I know.
It will be.
Oh.
and with
So
that,
I'll be
that is all I have.
drinking my ties on my
Uh,
balcony.
I would entertain a motion at this point.
I motion that we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Any nays? Okay, good. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate you.
All right, well, that's the done on there.
So
Oh, yeah.
Judy,
You guys are gonna have-
I will
How long
put,
we done for?
I will
10 nights.
incorporate those changes into this
Yeah, we're leaving
and email
tomorrow.
it to you.
Yeah.
They board the bus at
Okay.
4 AM, so we didn't wanna get up at 2
Mhm.
and drive we're gonna spend the night in St. George and just
Perfect.
drive a couple blocks.
Yeah.
Get on the bus at 4, get into Long Beach or whatever it is, and exit, get on the ship by 3, and then 10 minutes, get back there, and the bus will bring us back to St. George.
Oh, that's so convenient.
Yeah, there's a little, but it's okay.
No problem.
And it makes it nice.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
That's totally worth it.
I so love confrontation, you have no idea. If you only knew where I,
We got stuck in the traffic for 6
Oh,
hours
no.
coming home, you guys.
first,
That bus ride was way better than me.
yeah,
Speak up.
Oh, geez.
yeah, I could not handle it. I'm like, oh, I can't.
Well, that doesn't seem to be a problem.
You would think, right? But I still sit here and I'm shaking inside, you have no idea. It's not easy for me to speak up.
I was gonna say, Heather, I really
Oh.
appreciate your output, like,
Yeah.
you know, even though I don't agree with some of it, I really appreciate, like, you're doing this stuff. So,
I would go,
say,
I
keep
guess.
on doing it.
No, I know, and it's just, it's definitely not my comfort zone.
Well, you're doing great, so thank you.
I think that's the whole point though, is everybody has an opinion and you have to voice those opinions.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to have the discussion.
All right, I'm
Thank
turning
you.
off your mic so that Jerry doesn't have to walk by and make sure, turn off your mic.
Okay.
Mine's off.
How about this one?
All right, good night, everybody, happy New Year. We'll see you next week.
Okay,
See you Monday,
good night.
see you Monday night, water meeting, high school auditorium.
What is that? Oh, 'cause I figured I don't wanna change all that. Yeah. No, no, that's